Hey, IT changemakers, and welcome to The Deck Show with Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Unlike the great nation of France, here at The Deck Show and indeed Reality Bites, we do not take August off. Although you will rarely find us more sort of intercrossed by vacations and holidays. And before we get on to today's fantastic program, a shout out to our esteemed Reality Bites panelist and regular Dina, who joins us from holiday, from her vacation.
Yay.
Dina, what a soldier, what a trooper.
I like it. It's commitment. And I don't know if this is me being a workaholic or I just love you guys so much, but I think I love you guys so much.
Yes, it was non-obligatory. She was not required to join us today. I should stress to the listeners, but she wanted to because the topic was so
The
was such a
topic
good
is
one.
hard to miss. Yes.
Hard to
It's
bow
hard
out
to
of.
miss.
Whereas Megan, I think maybe would have, but Megan is on top of a mountain somewhere. I can't remember where there's no Wi-Fi at all. She might just tell us that though. She might just tell us that. But Dina, where do you care to share the beautiful surroundings that you join us from today?
Yes, so I'm in Egypt, in Alexandria, North Coast, where we have fantastic turquoise water and white sands.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what a not just a sort of a fun backdrop for today's show, but what an appropriate one, because today we are talking, we're taking a utopian perspective on the future of work, rather than reflecting as a team. And we're joined as well by Oriana and Sean. Hello to both of you as well.
Hello.
Hello. We are not just reflecting upon the constant small changes to workplace technology that we document, I think, quite rigorously across the Deck Show, and we're not just expressing our anxiety, the anxiety common to all modern employees, I think, about the future of our workplaces, the future of our professions, the future of work itself. We're gonna take an absolutely utopian view of the issue, and we're gonna be recklessly optimistic, to use the phrase that Sean coined when he gave us his wonderful idea for a program, and say, in a perfect world, in the world to come, what might work look like from the best possible perspective. What happens, you might say, if we design the silliness out of work? What if AI removes this is Sean's phrase, the coordination tax without pretending to be us? What if jobs leave more room for thinking, living, and doing the things that we actually deem important? Sean, so it's your topic. Help us then complete the following sentence. In Sean's work utopia, nobody ever has to what again?
Nobody ever has to use LinkedIn ever again.
Oh,
Obliterate.
phenomenal.
Yeah. Nobody has to rely on that for, and there's plenty of good that comes out of it. It's the way it is today, but there's no sense of performative work or having to justify work at that scale, because it is kind of a bit like you're acting, isn't it? It's like you do the thing and then you talk about the thing you just did. And yeah, I think I would do away with that in my utopian future.
That is such a great answer, Sean. What a way to kick it off. I have to admit something, actually. Because I've had to ban myself from successive other forms of social media, right, due to social media addiction, LinkedIn is like the only like social app left on my phone. So I
Yes.
kind of find myself
Yeah.
going on it like in a kind of a casual way, but it's not my favorite what would be the word, forum for much of anything. So what task, Sean, that seems completely normal today, do you think a worker in our ideal future here might find utterly ridiculous? I guess besides going on LinkedIn for
Yeah,
pleasure
besides
or profit.
LinkedIn, I think one of them, which would be silly, and I don't have the solution for it, but I think in the not too distant future, the concept of PowerPoint and doing slides and talks a lot of the time in any office culture, white collar work, it's what we've done recently. These are the successes, and then what we're going to do pretty soon. And then you go through, and it does remind me of like a storytelling time with kids, but all dressed up as adults. I think that will be laughed at and kind of mocked in the future. And I don't I don't know what I would do to replace it, but it is a bit silly, isn't it? It's kind of a lot of work is talking about what was just done and then what we're going to do
I
instead
am
of just kind of
particularly
doing it.
bad, Sean, as you might know from working with me for many years. Particularly bad PowerPoints. I would welcome this. Why do you think it will be supplanted? Because it won't be supplanted just because it's silly. It has to be supplanted because there's some shift in the perceived need for it.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully in a better future, it would be one of the things highlighted as the waste of time. And time is like everything in my future. So it would be in my utopian version. So it would be, again, maybe not even just we all have kind of one primary job, but there's multiple jobs, and 40 hours a week is absurd to some folks. If you're really into the thing you're into, you can work as much time as you want, but there's also alternatives where folks work a few hours a week and spend the rest of the time doing whatever it is they're interested in. So I hopefully it would be something like that. Yeah, where either an AI helps us identify it, or we culturally recognize like all of these things are like a faux pas to consider.
And does it not concern you, Sean, that if time required to work is whittled down so significantly that with it, the remuneration for work is accordingly
Yeah, of
whittled
course.
down
And yeah, I
too?
love these topics because they're so not sans tech. It goes immediately into philosophy and how people actually really feel. In a perfect utopian world, imagine, and I don't know if we'll ever get there, but you had some form of universal basic income or something that would
I
provide a
see.
safety net. So everybody has the access to healthcare, shelter, quality food,
Okay.
and that's really once you get the basics covered, then it's up to that person or the community to if they wanna, work more and receive more. But I think if it's an impossibility to have people out living in a street and everyone has a roof over their head, then it kind of upends the nature of, how many hours must we put in to have a quote unquote livable wage. All of these things have been invented.
Well, listen, I did not sign up to do a utopian episode. I signed up to do a utopian workplace episode, Sean. So, thinking specifically about the latter, and this whole question of visible busyness, you might say,
Mm.
what would become, do you think, the new sign of valuable work once the kind of performative aspect of modern professional life is retired, so to speak?
Yeah, again, I can't talk about it without being waxing philosophical.
That's okay.
I think
That's okay.
when people kind of quiet down about what they're doing, I mean, you can be proud of what you do, but again, the performative aspect of LinkedIn, I have to show up. And I think when people kind of shut up and just stick to what they do, I also think the concept, I was thinking about it today, when you lose track of time. So in 200 years, if like computers look back and they're like, what is this phrase that people say, I lost track of time? It's like, oh, well, they must have time elapsed and they literally lost track of it. That's not what it means for us today as humans. It means like the subtext means you were geeking out on something and truly interested in something. So the more times that occurs when you feel like you're losing track of time, it's probably because you're learning something new or novel, or you're gaining progress in something, you're literally geeking out on it. So I think that would be like a marker for, you know, things that would change in the future. The more times if that happens to you a lot now, then kudos, that's great.
Sean would like everyone to quieten down a bit, Dina.
Hush.
Oh, okay.
If we
No,
could all
no, I
just shut
like.
up and
Listen,
stop.
listen. I like it. But there's one bit, right? Maybe if I'm adding to it, it's the outcome. It's the immersive experience of you becoming a creator, right? This is where we used to say I lost track of time because I was doing something that would come up with an outcome that would be productive. And I'm not gonna overuse the productive word because it's misused if we're in the LinkedIn part. But we really need to go and redefine the storytelling. We need to define the outcomes and not just mark them as task, task, task. So if there is a specific project that would have an outcome, a value, an end goal, whichever term you want to use, if we start to do these things, we're gonna enjoy what we're doing, and we will get there. That's the in between where we are right now and getting into the workplace utopian kind of aspect. So let's just redefine what are outcomes and how creative we would be in doing that. If people are doing things that they really, really love, it's going to be super simple to lose track of time.
Wonderful. And what about if I was to give you the same question Sean just answered so brilliantly there, Dina? No pressure, especially on your holiday. In Dina's work utopia, nobody would ever have to. What again? What would be your blank there?
Spend time in administrative tasks. I would automate most of my administrative tasks and just have more time to do customer experience stuff, to do human things. Like human wants to speak to humans most of the time. Not they want to get whatever they want done, right? If you're in an ATM machine, you just want things to work, get what you need. But if you need to troubleshoot, you want to have a human being who can help you, who have all the insight, the information, etc. So if it's up to me, I would just automate all the administrative stuff, leave the rest for people to be creative.
So what wouldn't, to be specific, what would you never automate?
The human experience,
The human experience.
the customer experience, yes, in any kind of domain.
Mm. Mm.
That one I wouldn't automate.
And if AI removes all of that administrative and coordination work, I guess this brings us back to the philosophical dimension of the topic we were just touching upon there with Sean. What happens to the idea of the job? What is concretely left over in your view?
So we change and evolve as humans, right? It's always about the adaptability. So we need to change our way of working. So we become more focused on what matters the most, the experience, the outcomes, not the tasks per se. Like let's take the example of cutting vegetables in a kitchen. It's a good thing to do, but I would automate that. That's not fun. I don't think we would enjoy that much. But let's focus more on creating new meals, giving people new experiences and fusion of tastes, etc. Right? Same goes for work. I don't want to be updating my Excel files every day or building slides of PowerPoint, but I'd rather focus on the storytelling, the outcome that I'm leading, and the value of the conversation, right? So this is one of the things you waste a lot of time in at work to prepare for slides, put in the content, etc., etc. But if we just focus on the storytelling part and the value, we will get to much better optimized ways and times. We'll use the time more efficiently and we'll get to results. So I think that's what's going to be driving. And back to Sean's line before, that we can do different jobs, different things at the same time. That's what would allow us to do. It's just treating things as a full experience, not keeping them disconnected.
And what about this idea of, the traditional fixed role, the JD, or do you see it more as like the democratized workplace that Sean was kind of alluding to, of people moving between problems, projects, areas of expertise?
So I'm in between, right? It's good to have everything covered and given to everyone. That's fantastic, but you need to keep order a little bit, right? So keep the job descriptions just as an entry point, but we need to keep our skills toolbox up to speed, and it needs to be dynamic, right? So we can evolve and enhance our overall human experience. If that's our end goal. So not the projects more, not the tasks. The jobs become subject matter experts in different areas. So now, if you tell me now you're automating half of your tasks, what are you going to do with the rest of your time? Well, I'll become an SME. I'll become a subject matter expert in security. I'll become a subject matter in security and AI, the use of compliance, these kind of new things that my work is demanding. I'd rather use my time become an SME in them, which means I need to have a bigger or a wider toolbox of skills. And that will make us more valuable than the one size fits all kind of thing before. So the job description is one size fits all, in my opinion. It just gets you into a conversation, but it doesn't get you to the outcome or to the result. That one becomes more clear when you start to have a conversation with a human. As example, it's one of the things I do in my day-to-day when we're hiring people, right, and expanding teams, etc. It's good. People we get them through the job descriptions. That's fine. They fit. But then you start to get involved in a conversation. You need to look for the skills that they have, their communication skills, emotional intelligence, all of these kind of things that are not measurable and they're not AI, right? So I'm not going to measure their use on AI. That's going to be easy given. People can be prompted with prompts so they can do their jobs. But to perform and give the results at the end of the day, where you're in the customer experience business, then you still need the basic skills that are, let's call them soft skills. That's the simplest group if we want to put them in a place. The cognitive ones that AI cannot mimic. And if they do, it's just going to be like a mirror. And that's not what you need. You need the real deal, the human fingerprint.
And how do you feel, Dina? How do you feel your own day-to-day work has been impacted by the last 2.5 years of AI transformation? How different does do your days look like? Does your work feel like to what it was?
It's much more efficient, to be honest. Like, I can use my time in smaller chunks to do a lot of work that I used to take some weeks from me, or days to assemble data or consolidate what I need in Excels, etc. Now I can just prompt, keep a specific persona, do 1, 2, 3, 4, bam, I have the output. I take that result and build on top of it. So now let's just think about it this way. Back in the days, I used to work with smaller Lego pieces. Now I'm building sets of Lego. It's not just smaller pieces. I have bigger sets. I can build cities. I can build bigger things. So I can make much quicker progress just by the use of AI in my day to day. You just need to know your use case for real. It's just again, AI is just one more knife in the kitchen. It's not the whole meal.
Oriana, do you relate to that? As a description of the way AI has impacted your own workplace experience or your own sense of professional engagement, or would it strike you differently?
Um, I don't think that's specifically my experience, but I do think it's interesting to sort of just hear, what are the parts of work that people do or don't value and how much that varies person to person, right? So Sean is saying less PowerPoints, less sort of storytelling, whereas Dina is saying more storytelling. Um, and yeah, so that's just the first thing that stood out to me is that, you know, the problem isn't the PowerPoint, it's the pointlessness to me.
Power
And
pointless.
I think there's a certain amount of what makes the AI experience really good or bad is the culture underneath it, you know? I think there's a certain amount of, yes, big system stuff that's really important. How do things work so that we can create a better workplace? And in some ways, that is independent of AI, and AI can just fit into that and make that easier and better, or it can do the converse. It can really demand, okay, well, why don't you have that report yesterday if you can have a tool that does it, without really considering about, like, how do we make sure that it's telling the right story and not a pointless story, things like that. So I like the idea of what is the environment in which we're using AI and how does it really facilitate a positive relationship to work and a positive relationship to information. And then also, like, what is the most human way of communicating that information? So unfortunately, a lot of my most time consuming admin tasks involve talking to people. And I actually think it's really important that I don't use AI for that because it's relational, right? So much of my work is relational. And first of all, it's kind of rude if I'm sending somebody an AI message. And I think that should absolutely continue to be our culture. And second of all, it removes the possibility of connection. And that's part of also what makes my job joyful, right? I have these great conversations with people all over the world. And we also, I get updates on somebody's dog and their family, and then they help me out with a project. And it takes a few seconds, right? This is not overhead. This is an important part of work, is that we are humans working with humans. So I think that's an important component for me. And that's one of the things that like I can't automate.
Did you hear that, Sean? It's one of the important parts of work.
Yeah.
Interhuman communication.
Yep.
It
I'm
matters.
all for it.
Are
Well,
you? Are
yeah,
you
yeah.
sure?
I didn't say the opposite. I don't think. Maybe
No,
not.
not at all. Not at all. And that's why I
No, I
was
know.
saying,
I know.
like, yeah, how do we get rid of the pointless PowerPoints, right? Like how do we spend more time on the things that are valuable?
Agreed. Agreed. Well, imagine, Oriana, it is 2040 and you are visiting what Sean calls the Museum of Pointless Work. What present day workplace task, ritual, or object is displayed or perhaps should be displayed behind the glass?
Okay, I love this question. We're going to take an image tour. Picture this. You're in a museum. There's a giant diorama, okay, behind glass. Those little tiny miniatures. I love miniatures. And you see rooms full of people and their abject chaos.
Remember
There's
what?
a,
Say it again. Sorry, say it again.
there's a room full of people and it's
Yes.
abject chaos.
Abject chaos. Right?
Yes. The meeting has run long. It's an hour and a half long meeting. Atrocious. There's no agenda. And afterwards, nobody knows why or what they're doing. Okay? This is the diorama. It is the worst possible meeting. It is the confluence of all of the things that happen when people are performing the work without actually accomplishing things. And instead, we have AI that is built into our basic little work processes. So every single meeting we have has an agenda. Every single meeting is automatically shortened by 5 minutes at the end, or maybe at the beginning, because people are so bad at ending things on time. And it's fine because we have these tools that make things run smoothly. So you don't worry about, oh, is everyone going to be able to connect easily? Of course they will. Because even if it doesn't, if they have a problem with Teams, they can have this handy dandy Spark assistant that's going to fix it for them proactively and let them know, hey, I fixed that issue. You don't have to worry. Your meeting's going to start on time. You're going to be able to hear everybody. And at the end, you're going to have a nice, clear little list of takeaways with what everyone's going to be working on. You won't have to rely on memory for admin tasks. And you're just going to have way less chaos and time spent on these fiddly little things that we try to establish with culture now, but the AI helps reinforce positive cultural artifacts and practices.
It's a full museum tour. Thank you, Ariana. Just adding to what you brought up, Ariana, about workplace communication. You already mentioned the importance of keeping, say, much communication human. And I completely agree with you on that front, by the way. Are there are there forms of workplace communication that should be delegated to AI? Have you got anything to add to that theme of organic and inorganic workplace communication more generally?
Yeah, so that was a little bit what I was thinking with, how do we create this environment where good um good habits are reinforced by AI and supported by AI and positive cultural things, right? So I know someone who I'm very fond of, but is very, very brusque, who has started using AI to sort of help them check their tone.
Oh,
And I have to say, they are doing a much better job of not being as much of a jerk. Inadvertently, right? This is somebody who just has a bit of a tendency to steamroll people with their opinions. And, relatable, it happens. I also am a person who gets very excited about ideas. And so what they've been doing is sort of using this as a check. Now, I think this is sometimes a tricky road, right? But I really appreciate that this person has identified their own weakness and is like, I can tackle this using AI. And it's a very human thing to do. But they've managed to use AI to do this pretty effectively. And obviously, it's not 100%. And I think some of it is also, they're building their own skills. And by just taking the time to reflect and like change their messaging, they may not realize how much they're practicing that skill. But I think it's fantastic. Um, and I think that's a great example of like, it isn't always about replacing things. It's also about how do we use it to scaffold skills. And then, like I said, I hate it when meetings don't have agendas or don't have takeaways. And I feel like that's the kind of thing where AI is really great, is to make sure that you're not missing that. Um, and I think it's one of those things that, again, scaffolds people into much better habits.
My mother, Oriana, was working with a workman on a project that was important to her, and he wasn't a crook, right? But he could be extremely aggressive and emotionally kind of intense, and she was became really really intimidated. I took over the communications with this guy to just try and cool things down and to try and have like a protective layer. My mum was getting very upset about it all, and it went really really well, but it was like a protracted like 6 8 months of communicating with him. And at a certain point I started putting all of my emails to him into an LLM, and it would almost always tone down my own emotional tone, right? To keep things cool, to keep things steady, to make sure I didn't get frustrated, I didn't cross a line, I didn't provoke him. And it was amusing to witness this emotional tone in my own communications being toned down, toned down, toned down. But it was ultimately really, really effective. I ultimately had to hand it to AI as having a better measure of how to engage in a sustainable, calm way with this gentleman than I did. And what about you? When AI tries to write in your voice, Oriana, what does it change? What does it miss? Not necessarily in such a kind of fraught context, but more generally.
Also, it's very sweet that you were able to help her with that. And I think, yeah, that's the idea, right? You have filters on filters, and sometimes
Mm,
that's a good thing, and sometimes that's a bad thing. And I think what I struggle with, as somebody who the main core of my job is not writing, right? When I have to write something, I often go to somebody like Sean and go, "Hey, can you help me out with this?" But I do quite like writing, and when I write, I do have a distinctive voice. I tend to
mhm,
phrase things in a way that is very particular to me. I have creative metaphors. I love creative metaphors. I love visuals, things like that. And I see I'm also very good at summarizing things very, very succinctly. It's a huge part of what I do is restating things in brief. And those are two things that I find anytime I ask ChatGPT to revise my writing, what I started doing is I don't let it rewrite anything. I ask it to give me line by line what it
mhm,
might offer as a suggestion. And then I change what it's offering me. I just take the principle, right? Like, did I need to change grammar? Did I need to make something clearer? But I don't use its suggestions because they're all, like you said, flat. It feels like, when you see somebody on a photo that has been filtered so hard that you can barely see their face anymore, all their features melt away. And that's the thing that I don't like is that it strips away all of that personality and all of those details. And also then it just does a very poor job of saying things succinctly, and that drives me crazy. I'm gonna say that I think that's one thing that a lot of these tools need is they need a succinct mode.
can be very verbose, can't it? You're quite right. Well, we've just veered into complaining about LLMs together, haven't we? A little bit. But I have to say that the utopian angle doesn't come to me very easily, right? I sometimes think that we underestimate the need for like mundanity, for repetition in life as a kind of ballast. It's something that um allows
100%.
us allows us to like take time to relax without to relax the creative part of our brains, and the active part of our brains without necessarily overly relaxing, shall we say, you know not just sort
Yeah,
of
I mean,
watching
this
a
is the
YouTube
big
video.
value of boredom argument, right? Like, we need
Yes.
space to think. We need space to be creative. Like, I'm a huge fan of I'll work on something and I'll go take a walk before I come back to it bec- because otherwise I can't put a fresh eye on it.
100%. Sean, let's give the last word to you. You brought us this wonderful topic. Take us home.
All right. It's so hard for me to be optimistic in utopia. You know what I think? I think all of this, we're going to be like, why in the future, and be like, why weren't we just all working on something directly related to climate change? But there you go. All of this other stuff is just, what were we thinking? How silly.
adding to it rather than yes. Okay. Well, that does not exactly bring us to our conclusion on a utopian note, but that's okay. And look, maybe the at work utopia is already here with us now, believe it or not, because Dina, of course, is choosing to join us for this conversation from a holiday. So special thanks to you, Dina, and thanks, Oriana. Thanks, Sean. Thanks again, Dina, for joining us. It was a wonderful chat.
Goodbye.
Love it. Thanks, everybody.
That's it for this week's Deck Show. We'll be back next week. And if you don't already, be sure to follow the show so you don't miss an episode. Until next time.